Hi and welcome to the video. A slightly different one for me today as I'm filming this while I'm on holiday, but I wanted to do a follow-up on my previous global airline videos now that they've completed their first set of paid passenger flights to New York's JFK from both Glasgow and Manchester respectively. The ambitious vision of James Asquith on creating a new airline based entirely on the Airbus A380 aircraft was decried at the outset as a pipe dream by many, including myself, not really expecting them to operate a single commercial flight. However, with the completion of their two initial return flights to New York, they have certainly proven us all wrong, and have indeed delivered on what they promised. Or have they? Well, I guess that depends on your definition of what defines an airline. So yes, the Airbus A380 aircraft owned by Global Airlines did indeed operate 4 flight sectors with fare-paying passengers on board. However, these were not operated with any of Global's own flight crew, cabin crew, or under their own air operator certificate, but rather those of Hi-Fly, a Portuguese-based charter airline. Now, to a large degree, this makes a lot of sense for Global. Air operator certificates are very costly and take a long time to acquire, and similarly, until they have regular scheduled operations, the expense of hiring their own flight crew or cabin crew is never going to add up. Better to simply rent a crew from Hi-Fly for these flights that it's going to operate in the short term. This makes the operation more akin to a dry lease, with Global providing the aircraft under the guise of a virtual airline, but everything else being operated by Hi-Fly. It's nothing that new really. Well-established airlines have used similar arrangements when they've needed additional capacity in their fleet, although these are usually wet lease arrangements where another company is providing both the aircraft and the crew. But it does still beg the question though, was this really a Global Airlines flight or a Hi-Fly flight? Regardless of your or my views on this, the big question that remains is now what's next for Global. Since it's not clear what purpose these initial flights were meant to serve other than generating press coverage, it's not clear whether they've helped or hindered Global's plans going forward. Certainly these direct routes from Glasgow and Manchester going forward were never factored into their route plans, which always seem to be based on a Gatwick hub for their operations. If it was to demonstrate they could get the passenger loads in these flights, then again, I'm not sure from a commercial perspective that they've done themselves any favours here. Loads in the initial Glasgow to JFK flight were only around 95 passengers, less than a fifth of the aircraft's capacity. Given that a significant number of passengers on that inaugural service were journalists, YouTubers and content creators, the return leg was, unsurprisingly, even quieter. Similarly, if it was to give the media and passengers a first glimpse of how Global was going to redefine air travel, then I think they missed the mark here. If we look past the 12-year-old hard product that they were operating with, seats originally fitted by China Southern and given a bit of a makeover with some new upholstery, the soft product on that initial flight was far from perfect. Now, there are always going to be teething issues with any new service, but with how slow and inconsistent the meal service was on board that first flight, it does make you question how much training and any dry runs that the crew had before they operated that flight. With YouTubers like Josh Cahill and Noel Phillips stating that it took nearly 3 hours for their main courses to arrive, the delay has been blamed on a mix of reasons, from problems with the ovens to the catering company incorrectly loading items. But the truth is, we'll likely never really know. It's clear on this front at least that service seemed to be markedly improved on the return flight, and the subsequent Manchester flights seem to have been much better. But it still smacks of a surprising lack of attention to detail on an airline that was going to redefine air travel. And it's this apparent lack of attention to detail that I think raises larger concerns. For an airline that again wanted to redefine air travel and position itself above other legacy carriers, many things have the appearance of being done in the cheap. Now that's a weird mix when you consider how insanely expensive it was in the first place to buy an A380, with reports that Global paid an 8-figure sum for the aircraft, And despite the onboard refurbishment being limited to reupholstery of the seats, that is still going to cost a fair chunk of cash. So when investing so much, why have they opted for cheap stickers for their brand throughout the cabin? Even the exterior livery for the aircraft has been scaled back to just a painted tail fin, and not the impressive red belly of their original aspirations, which they still use in older marketing materials. From their basic website, which hadn't been updated in nearly a year, and is still offline, having gone down the same day as their first flight from Glasgow, to the complete lack of any integration with their third-party booking website for tickets, from the poor email communications in response to customers, to typos on their onboard menus. So many things just don't match up to the quality levels and expectations that they've set for passengers. And in terms of those aspirations, what's next? You'd think that Global would be capitalising on the media coverage of these recent flights to announce their next routes, even if it's only going to be another set of one-off return flights similar to Glasgow and Manchester, rather than any of their longer-term scheduled routes. However, other than posts from James Asquith and Global Airlines on Instagram, sharing pictures from some of the many photos of their A380 or from some of the positive onboard reviews, there's been very little to speak of. When Asquith was asked by travel reporter Simon Calder what's next on the day of their first Glasgow flight, Asquith rather bizarrely said, "Who knows, maybe we'll turn it into a spa," which isn't exactly the clear and concise business plan you would be looking for from your CEO. Global's website is still offline at the time of making this video, with a holding page that's been in place for a couple of weeks now. And the booking website is still showing the Glasgow and Manchester flights, so there's very little information coming out, and it's clear that stuff is still not getting updated. It's been reported that their A380 is now due its heavy maintenance check, which includes interior fuselage inspections and requires the full strip out of the entire cabin and all seating, with costs reaching up to $25 million based on similar Emirates maintenance costs on the Air A380 aircraft. It's going to be interesting to see if the investment money is there to support this massive cost or not, and whether this in itself has the potential to stop the airline in its tracks, or it's always been factored into their costs from the beginning. This information vacuum isn't helping anyone and leaves room for speculation, so I really hope that Global relaunch their website soon, hopefully with an announcement of future flights. Much as I know that I've been fairly critical of them, I'm only trying to hold them to the standards and expectations that they themselves have set for us from the outset. I completely understand when things make more commercial or operational sense, such as commencing operations with a refurbished interior, rather than incurring significant additional costs and further delays waiting for new seats. But there really is no excuse for the continued lack of transparency or clarity around their future plans. Any new venture is going to face an uphill climb, and Asquith and the team at Global have already proven so many wrong by actually operating these first flights. So with the continued drive and passion from that team, I'm fairly sure that anything is possible moving forward, as long as they don't drop the ball and leave it too long to announce more flights. I, for one, hope to get the chance to fly with them on a future date, and I really do hope that they grow into a larger operation and bring some additional choice back into the market. And James, if you're watching this, a permanent Glasgow to JFK route as part of those plans would be absolutely fine with me. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I really hope that you've enjoyed the video. And if you have, please don't forget to hit that like button and let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on Global Airlines and their future. If you want to support the channel more directly, you can buy me a coffee via the link in the description below.